They built a $9 billion machine that never worked. Not once, not reliably, not the way they swore it did. And almost everyone who mattered believed in it completely. Senators, generals, a former Secretary of State, all convinced, stay with this because the trick is hiding in plain sight. And the lesson will guard every dollar you ever invest. It is a story about belief, secrecy, and a missing product. The company was called Theranos, born in Silicon Valley. It promised to change blood testing for the entire world. One drop of blood from a tiny prick of the finger. From that drop, hundreds of tests, fast and very cheap. No more big needles, no more vials, no more waiting. It was a beautiful idea, and the world wanted it true. At the center stood a young woman named Elizabeth Holmes. She had dropped out of Stanford at just 19 years old. She wore black turtlenecks and spoke in a deep, low voice. People said she was the next Steve Jobs of medicine. She was magnetic, certain, and impossible not to believe. And belief, remember, is the most expensive thing of all. Investors poured money in, hundreds of millions of dollars. By 2014, Theranos was worth $9 billion. Elizabeth Holmes was a paper billionaire at just 30. Magazines put her face on every glossy cover they printed. She was the youngest self-made woman billionaire alive. Here is the question no one dared to ask. Where exactly was the working machine behind all of this? Theranos called its device the Edison, after the inventor. The Edison was supposed to run every test from one drop. That promise alone should have made any expert pause hard. Real blood tests use large machines and a real sample size. Different tests need different chemistry and different blood. Squeezing them all from one tiny drop is brutally hard. The science was not magic, it was physics and chemistry. And inside the building, the Edison simply did not work. Its results were wrong, unstable, and wildly inconsistent. Run the same sample twice and you got two different answers. Engineers inside reported the failures again and again. Their warnings were brushed aside or quietly buried. These were not investment numbers, these were people's health. A wrong test can hide a cancer or invent one. So the company did something quiet and very dangerous. It hid the broken Edison and ran tests another way. Secretly, they used other companies' commercial machines. They diluted the tiny drops to feed those normal machines. Diluting the blood made the results even less reliable, so the secret fix quietly created a brand new problem. Meanwhile, to the outside world, the Edison was a triumph. This is the heart of the story, so hold it. There was a dazzling story and there was no working product. A story is not a business. A pitch is not product. Write that on the inside of your eyelids before you invest. Now look at how the believing actually happened step by step. Theranos built one of the most famous boards in America. Former secretaries of state, senators, and retired generals. Powerful, respected men whose names opened any single door. Their faces gave the company instant, unquestioned credibility. But here is the quiet thing about that famous board. Almost none of them understood blood testing at all. They were statesmen and diplomats, not laboratory scientists. A great board is not the same as a working business. Impressive names can decorate a company that has no engine. Famous faces are reassurance. They are not real verification. Demand to see the engine, not the names on the brochure. Next came the partner that made the danger truly real. In 2013, Theranos partnered with Walgreens. Walgreens is a giant American pharmacy chain everywhere. Theranos blood centers opened inside real Walgreens stores. Now ordinary people were getting tested by a broken machine. They paid real money and trusted the printed result. They had no idea the technology behind it was hollow. Their real diagnoses depended on numbers that were wrong. Some patients were told they were sick when they were fine. Some were told they were fine when something was wrong. The lie had escaped the office and entered real bodies, and still, the money and the praise kept flowing in. Walgreens had not fully verified the technology either. They trusted the story, the board, and the soaring valuation. Nobody insisted on opening the box and testing it cold. This is the discipline that protects a serious investor. Before you trust a result, you demand to verify the result. If only the company can confirm it works, beware. Secrecy plus hype is a warning, not a sign of genius. Real strength can stand bright daylight and hard questions. Theranos guarded its secrets with extraordinary force. Employees signed strict agreements and were kept apart. One team never knew what the other team was even doing. Lawyers threatened anyone who dared to ask hard questions. Inside, a few honest workers grew quietly very afraid. They could see the machine failing test after test. They knew real patients were trusting these false numbers. The weight of that secret pressed down on them daily. To stay silent felt like helping something genuinely wrong. A few of them decided they could not keep quiet anymore. Quietly, they began to talk to a single curious reporter. His name was John Carreyrou of the Wall Street Journal. He started pulling at the threads the company had hidden. He found former employees willing to describe the truth. He found doctors who had received impossible test results. Every thread he pulled revealed the same hollow center. The story, it turned out, was almost all there ever was. In 2015, the Journal published its first report. It said the Edison did not do what the company claimed. Theranos fought back hard with denials and with lawyers. For a while, the famous board still shielded the story. But the truth, once loose, does not crawl back inside. Regulators arrived and inspected the secret laboratory. What they found was alarming, dangerous, and undeniable. They banned Elizabeth Holmes from running a lab for years. Walgreens cut ties and closed the testing centers down. The $9 billion valuation collapsed towards zero. Investors who poured in fortunes lost almost everything. Nearly $1 billion of real money simply vanished. This is the loss the dazzling story always tried to hide. The famous names had not protected a single dollar of it, because none of them had ever demanded the working product. Then came the part that the story could never escape. Elizabeth Holmes was charged with criminal fraud. Prosecutors said she had knowingly deceived her investors, and far worse, she had deceived sick and frightened patients. Her defense said she truly believed her own grand vision, but belief does not undo the harm a false test causes. Fake it till you make it can quietly become plain fraud. In 2022, a jury delivered its hard verdict. Elizabeth Holmes was found guilty on several fraud counts. She was sentenced to more than 11 years in prison. The next Steve Jobs of medicine walked into a prison cell, and the Edison, the miracle machine, never really worked. Now take the lessons that protect your own hard money. First, a story is not a business, no matter how good. A vision needs a product that truly works behind it. Second, always demand to see the real product itself. Not a video, not a demo, not a carefully chosen result. Ask to verify it independently with your own cold eyes. Third, a famous board is decoration, not a guarantee. Powerful names cannot make a broken machine actually run. Judge the engine of the company, never just the brochure. Fourth, treat hype and secrecy together as a warning. Real value can survive daylight and stubborn hard questions. If they hide the details, assume the details are the problem. These 4 habits would have spared every Theranos investor. None of them required genius, only patience and nerve. The crowd will call you cynical for asking to verify. Let them. Your money answers only to the facts. They are the same habits Graham and Buffett quietly preach. Demand the facts, verify the product, distrust the dazzle. The most dangerous investments wear the most beautiful stories. The brighter the legend, the harder you should look. Theranos was a perfect story wrapped around an empty box. $9 billion of belief and no working machine. Now you can spot the empty box before you pay. That is the discipline that quietly keeps you wealthy. The next video covers another founder the whole world trusted. If this was useful, subscribe and we will go deeper still.